You know, I have a saying. I've used it ever since I've been doing this drag racing, hot rodding thing, and that is, I would rather be lucky than good any day. If you remember in my last video, I was talking about tunnel rams and how I didn't have a Cleveland intake. So, through the power of the internet and whatnot, guess what? Behind me, I have a 351 Cleveland Weiand Hi-Ram tunnel ram for this motor. Now, I'm getting ready to show you something that I was completely blown away by. And when I say that I'm lucky, it might be an understatement. Before I get into the nuts and bolts about this intake, I've got to give a huge shout out to Mike Rowland. Come to find out, he's a local guy to me in Dallas, and he actually has a speed shop. And he's owned them in the past, and he still has a lot of inventory. I'm going to post a little picture right now. So if you guys are looking for any kind of speed parts local here in North Carolina, give Mike a try, because I was able to score this manifold by doing some trading with him to keep the cost of this thing down some. So we did some trading on some intakes. But the cool part about this intake is this is actually new old stock. You can look here at the bolt holes. This intake's never been bolted on an engine. Now, whether or not how old it is, I don't know. I would probably guess that it's somewhere 30 to 40 years old. But let's look inside this thing. One thing you will notice is it's going to require some work. It's nothing out of the ordinary. You can see where the casting between the upper plenum and the lower manifold doesn't quite meet up. And that's only going to require a little bit of attention with a grinder, so that's no big deal. Another cool feature about these manifolds is when you remove the top here, the bolt pattern that holds the plenum on is actually the same bolt pattern for, guess what? A Holley Dominator. So Weiand actually sold an adapter that would radius these entries. I think it was part number 7470. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was the part number. Where it allowed you to bolt a Dominator straight here and have an independent runner setup. Now that's one thing that I have no experience in, is independent runner manifolds. Other than the fact I know that you have to have a lot of carburetor to make it work because there's no plenum sharing. That's about all I know. But when I got this thing to the house, I was pretty surprised, really, because I'm getting ready to show you something pretty cool. One of the things that I was thinking about was when I was to get a Cleveland intake, that I was going to have to run a 3/8 stick adapter plate because of the difference in the deck height between the Cleveland and the Windsor. The Cleveland being a 9.2 deck motor and the Windsor's being a 9.5 deck motor. Of course, like any gearhead, I had to sit the manifold directly onto the cylinder heads to see what I was looking at. Okay, and as you can see, it's sitting perfectly flush right here. Now this is the part that's the real kicker. As you can see, the port alignment is almost dead on. Now I'm going to have to epoxy some of the runner of the manifold itself to get it to the size of the hammerhead performance engine heads, and the corners of the ports are at a different radius as well. But that's no big deal. That can be done with an epoxy. The cool part, and let me see if I can get it, is the center bolt holes line up perfectly. These bolt holes are in the same location, they're just drilled on a different angle. And what that means is I'm going to be able to slot this hole in the intake and make an angled spacer for the bolt to where the bolt will still go straight down like it would in a Windsor application, and it's going to work. Now out here is where things are going to get a little tricky. As you can see where the outer bolt holes for the Cleveland actually go right where the holes are for the water crossovers for the Windsor deal. I don't think that's going to be a big issue. I can either drill and tap a hole down here, weld that up and move it. There's many different things I can do. So I told you guys that I had multiple reasons for me wanting to run a dry manifold. And one of those reasons that I didn't talk about is I spoke about the adapter that you would normally have to run to make up this distance right here, running a traditional distributor. It's going to drop right in, and with the top on, all I'm going to have to do is cut this back so slightly so that I can get enough room for my plug wires to go onto the cap. So you can see that that's going to be a huge advantage. Now for you Ford guys, I'm going to give you another little tech tip that I learned by doing crazy things. This distributor here, and most of you may know this and you may not, but a 351 Windsor has its own part number for a distributor. The 351 Cleveland and the 429 and 460 engines use the same distributor. It's a different part number than the 351 Windsor. But I found through measuring here, the shaft length, it uses the same 5/16 hex drive for the oil pump. The only difference between a big block and Cleveland distributor and a 351 Windsor distributor is the gear itself. You change the gear out. The big block gear and Cleveland gear is slightly bigger in diameter. You swap on a Windsor gear and guess what? You're good to go. This is actually a big block distributor that I ran in my 351 Windsor for quite a while. So as you can see, that can be a huge benefit if you're at a swamp meet and you just stumble across a big block distributor and you're looking for one for your Windsor. Just know that you can use that distributor. All you have to do is change the gear. I found it out just by tinkering around and trying different things and a lot of measuring with my calipers. So this week is going to be a big week for Mixed Up Boss. The camshaft, the springs, retainers, all of that is supposed to be in my hands this coming week. I'm very excited to be working with Howard's on this project. Howard's come on board, helped me out a little bit with the camshaft. I've got a lot of work to do to that intake manifold to make it suitable for what I'm trying to do. Now, a lot of people may say, why are you doing all that? Well, I'm trying to make a lot of power with it, yes. But one of the most important things about this build to me is the look. Is actually having something that looks nostalgia and looks somewhat period correct. You know, if I put a sheet metal intake on it, it would kill the image of it. So when you look at this motor and you see a Cleveland intake with Boss 429 style heads on a Windsor block, it's going to confuse even the sharpest Ford guys out there. So until next time, this is Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage. I'll catch you later.